In today's video, we're going to talk about building your team. Now, having a team is essential in building scale into your business. If you ever want to do anything other than the work that you do for your clients, then you need to have a team in place. Someone to answer the phone, someone to do the bookkeeping, someone to make sure the place is open and closed, providing customer service, delivering the results, even running the payroll and doing the administration, the things that you would ordinarily do yourself. So if you ever hope to take a step out of your business, you're going to need to build a team. But getting to the point where you actually have a team is very difficult for a lot of business owners because often, it's kill a bear, eat a bear. You've got to find the work and then you've got to do the work. And you're in this constant cycle of trying to get out of being the person that's doing the work. So it might be that in order to get to the first person doing the work, that you create some videos, you record some information on how you do your day-to-day tasks. But I guess when you're starting out, you don't have enough work or enough of one type of work to give to one person. So you kind of need an all-rounder. So you need to capture everything that you do and then give them a few tasks, because otherwise when you're busy doing the work, you don't have enough time spare to go and recruit someone, train someone, give them workload. Meanwhile, you're doing that, you're now distracted from your day-to-day work and you're not bringing in the revenue that you would have otherwise brought in. And so having a fractional resource can help alleviate some of that pressure. Also, having recorded materials to give them on day one can also alleviate that pressure because you're now not having to spend as much time training them. So having those steps in place will help you to get to your first team member. But then once you scale out from there, generally when you have a team member, most of them want to be more specific. They can't do everything in the business like you. And you don't have enough of any one type of problem to give them. So you need to increase the volume of problems that you have or issues or tasks that you have to do. So that if they're on marketing, you're not just having one person doing full-time marketing. They might do a bit of marketing, a bit of something else, and a bit of something else. Eventually, when you get big enough, you can have one dedicated person to marketing or a team of people dedicated to marketing. But getting to that point can be a little bit tricky, particularly early on. As you get more and more people, after a certain point, it becomes less risky. When you're in business by yourself and you add another person, that is a 100% increase on the number of staff that you have. But if you've got 10 staff and you add one person, that's a 10% increase on the staff that you have. So it's not really as much of an impact if they don't work out. There is an impact and it can cost you money, but it's nowhere near as risky as when you had that first employee. Now, one way to mitigate this is to have fractional employees, people that do things a little bit here and there. They're not like a full-time employee. Another way to mitigate this is to do low-risk activities and hand those off. So have in your personal life, you're mowing, get your bookkeeping done, have some cleaning done or something that's low risk that doesn't require a lot of onboarding time so that you can get those tasks off your plate and you have more time to focus on doing the work. Then when you bring in another resource to solve a specific challenge, they are only taking up a portion of that financial budget instead of the entire budget for what would otherwise be your salary. There is another inflection point once you get to about 10 to 15 staff, at which point you can no longer manage everybody yourself and you need to bring in somebody as a bit of a supervisor. You need to put some structure and control in your organization. At this point now, you're starting to hire people that are non-revenue earning. You might have someone who is a project manager. They're not necessarily earning direct revenue from the projects or from the clients, but they are reducing your workload blockages. They are making projects go faster. They're making your existing resources run better. But it's not until you get to about 15 to 20 staff that really starts to be effective for you. These numbers have to be taken in context and are relevant to me, but similar problems and roadblocks exist in all types of businesses. Now, when you take on team members, straight away you become a leader. Whether you like it or not, you now are responsible for guiding, training, maintaining that person and their ability to perform. And that's a task that requires you to be a little bit more hands-on, to actually take the time to spend with these people and train them and guide them and get them pointing in the right direction. You really need to be aligned with the tasks that you're doing and the mission that you have and the goals and the objectives that you have. Early on, you don't need to write the mission statement, the problem statement, the vision of the company, because you know it. It's all in your head. But the moment you involve other people, now you need to start writing it down. These are the things that seem kind of important, but they become more and more important with the more people that you have in your business. So it can be important to set that direction correctly from day one. So just spending a little bit of time, even if you update it later or it changes along the way, having something written down can make your life a lot easier as a leader, because you clearly have a vision for what you want the company to do or be when it grows up. And you're also helping form the decisions. Particularly if you're delegating something to someone and you're giving them decision power, you're basically saying that that person can come up with ideas and execute on their own. Now, if they're going to all of a sudden, let's just say you run an IT business like we do, and you hire someone, they want to turn it into an ice cream shop. That's not really good because you haven't set the direction. You need to be able to containerize the thoughts and the ideas and the plans that they have within. Yes, you give them freedom and scope to make decisions and come up with ideas and solve problems, but within the scope of what you as a leader, as a business owner, as the person who originated the company, are trying to achieve. And you definitely want to give your people the ability to think for themselves. Otherwise, if you're constantly there having to direct them, if you're constantly there having to make decisions for them, you're not really getting any value of having the employee. If you've heard the saying, don't keep a dog and bark yourself. You need that person to be able to be autonomous, to be able to solve problems. This is why I stress that you need to build the systems in your business. Quite often we see that people go and get the tools that are kind of flashy and wiggle and you click the button and confetti falls down the screen. But the problem with those is that often these systems lack the control. The control mechanisms, once you get past 5 or 10 people, mean that you need to be able to lock down certain features, that people can't delete things, or that if it is deleted it can be recovered, or if you want someone to be able to access something that they can not progress past a certain point without your permission. Having controls allows you to scale effectively and make sure that the processes are consistent and that everybody's doing the approved activities to a certain extent. Yes, there'll be things outside the realm of what the systems can handle. That's where you need the people to be able to make decisions, or you need to have people that can decide whether or not this task needs to go down this process or that process. One is going to be more relevant in that particular context. Sometimes you just can't write the thing down because people need to have experienced it or know the customer well enough. So you need the people to understand and think for themselves, but within the framework and the rules that you set. Systems allow you to build leadership and guidance into your business without you having to be there 24/7, 365. You've got the ability to provide the information and the rules or the playbook and the way that people have to conduct themselves for the business into the system. And this allows you to do improvements on a micro scale, in that you might run a process and find out that at step 3 you should send an email welcome series, or you should say thank you, or you should do a particular thing. Being able to have a structured system means that you can change one thing and then another thing and get the feedback and experimentation and implement that back into the process, instead of everything being a fresh start every time. You can't build on that. You can't scale beyond that. The other thing it allows you to do is rely on the system. So when something goes wrong, you know that it's a system problem, not a people problem. Or if it is a people problem, then it was a training problem, not that individual. And then sometimes at the nth degree, it could have been that person's problem, but now you've narrowed that down and you haven't wasted all that time in recruitment and training and getting them on board, and you haven't made the job confusing for them. Having some systems and structure and control means that the employees turn up and they know what they've got to do. They feel confident in being able to deliver because it's really clear what they have to do, what the goals and objectives are, and they know that in order for me to win, I have to make that happen. And if that happens, then I know that I'm going to get this result, or I know that I'm going to pass my probation and be looked at for promotion in the future, as an example. You need to create an environment where people are empowered to do things on your behalf to or near the satisfaction level that you would expect. No, your employees are never going to get it as perfect as you want them to be. They're probably going to come up with different ways of doing things. They're probably going to make some mistakes. But if you don't allow them to make some mistakes, you don't allow them to try things, they're never really going to try to step out and do something that surprises you. If you allow a little bit of space for your team to do something a little bit above and beyond, they're probably just never going to do it. And then you won't get these ideas and feedbacks that you should have otherwise gotten. And you won't then be able to solve problems that you can't see because your team just aren't telling you, because they don't want to disappoint you, or they don't want to get yelled at, or they don't want to get in trouble or something like that. So you need to create an environment that allows you to work with your team rather than against your team. Yes, you should hold them to account. Yes, you should give them a set of objectives that are a little bit beyond like just the basics if they were sitting on their hands and doing nothing. You don't want to give them a task that they could do with their eyes closed. You want to challenge them. But then you challenge them from a perspective of, this is going to help you grow and learn as an individual. And if you achieve it, then we both win and we can share the rewards, or something like that. This sort of framing allows your team to go above and beyond, to create new things, to come back with new feedback and ideas and products. Otherwise, it's all on you. If you take two concepts, the military have a concept of mission command versus central command. Central command is everything runs through one particular individual. And that could be you, the business owner. And by having everything come through you, you have to deal with every decision. You have to deal with every idea, thought, problem, and nothing gets solved at the lowest level. Mission command is you basically create an environment where you have leaders within your business that are responsible for certain areas. They have rules and parameters that they have to operate within, but they can make decisions and solve problems. You give your intent. It is my intent that this is what we need to do. They then go and take that intent, look at the tools and resources that they have, the rules that they have to fit within, and then they go and execute. They come up with a plan and they go and deliver it. Maybe they back brief you on the plan and say, this is what I want to do based on what you're trying to achieve. And you can give them a little bit of feedback. Maybe they'll come back with something you never thought of or could ever think of because they have a different worldview, they have a different experience, they have different networks. Then you can give them some reflective feedback and say, I like it, but on this little bit area, I would recommend doing this instead of that because you're probably running into a problem down the road. And that will give you the ability to have some control, but not so much that you can't delegate out the task. You're giving people freedom to be creative, to come up with ideas, to develop plans, and then they have that sense of ownership. They feel like when they achieve it, that it's so much more their value that they have brought to the table. They feel as though they have accomplished something. And that is a powerful feeling for them to have. So if you can generate moments where you can have your team feel like they've achieved something, feel successful, then that creates a snowball effect where they want to do more and they want to achieve the next thing. They feel like they're expanding and growing. And well, hey, we all just win together. And that just makes it so much more of an easier business to run than having to come up with every idea and be the central source of decision making. Now, in order to find the people that can help you do this, you really should be hiring on attitude. Yes, skills are important, but if they don't have the right attitude, then they're never going to achieve what you want them to achieve. You want someone who's driven, a bit of motivation, someone who can solve problems, someone who is, positive and upbeat, not someone who's depressive and angry at everything. You want to create an environment of success. And so you need to pick and choose the personalities that are going to come together and create something new and exciting. Skills can be trained. Skills can be taught. You can get people to go through certain processes so that they understand certain things. Now, we've hired some of our best people through interns. They have literally no experience. They've gone to uni, they've come out, and they haven't done the real job. So we've been able to guide them, but they were the right people. They were motivated. They stuck around. They listened, and they were coachable. So having someone that comes out of school, maybe does a little bit of experience, maybe has a couple of wins, thinks they know absolutely everything. Then they come over to you and they try to tell you like it is. They only want to do it their way. They think your way sucks, which may not work because they may not have the context of your particular customer segment or the way that you do business. Or maybe they missed something. Maybe they take it at face value. And instead of really delving into why we do a particular thing, they just think they know better and they go and do it anyway. That's a problem. That's not something that's really going to help you grow your business. Now, I'm not saying that you don't take people with experience. What I'm saying is if they have the wrong approach, if they have the wrong attitude, you cannot fix that. That is not trainable. Most of people's personality is locked into their brain, is hardwired by the time they are 3 years old. You can't get back in a time machine and go and fix that. In fact, if you tried to, I'm sure their parents would take up an issue with that. The point is, you really need to focus on what you can control and not what you can't. Identify problems early and avoid them. There have been times where I've identified people with a particular skill set that I see valuable, or a particular attitude or set of values that I really see as valuable. And then I've offered them some work or a role or a project or something like that, because I can see that one, they would probably enjoy it, but two, they would also benefit from the experience. And because I think that their natural abilities would really fit that task. And that's much more impactful than just going out and looking for people who are also looking for your type of work. Sometimes the greatest hires we've had are people that have just fallen into it because they've discovered something that they had a passion for that they didn't know that they would like or enjoy. And by playing to people's strengths, you can actually do more instead of just going for the, we put a job out, these 5 people are looking for the job. They may not like the job, but they're stuck with it now because they did the degree, they got 10 years experience and can't be bothered changing careers and finding something else. Sometimes people who go through a career change unexpectedly fall backwards into a particular thing that they find out that they love or that they're really, really good at. Those things can happen. It's not that you have to go with the very traditional, very structured process of things. Sometimes they perform better as employees because now they really enjoy it and they're good at it and they get the feedback and it just makes their life better. And then it makes your company better because they work harder, or they don't try to leave as early as possible. They don't sit around on their phone wondering what to do because they're invested in it. They're passionate about it. So that's a really powerful way to find a great team player. And speaking of team players, you need to find people with the right attitude, not just for you, but the right attitude for the other people in your team. How do they treat the lowest person in the company? What do they do when they come along and someone doesn't done something that they expected them to do? Do they start yelling, or do they try to coach them and train them on how to fix it? Or do they approach it from the perspective of, I'm trying to help you, or you need to do better? Like, there is a way to do things and there's a way not to do things. So having someone that can integrate well with your company culture, that is personable and friendly and helpful, that could be really, really good, as opposed to someone who thinks they know everything, they're going to come in and point fingers and yell at people. That is not the attitude that you want. Because sometimes people present differently in interviews than they do with the rest of the team of people who they see either on their level or below their level. You need to try and find ways to find this information out. Sometimes it's great to meet them at a networking event or in a crowd or somewhere where they have to go and talk to other people. Like being at a restaurant, go and see how they talk to the waiter. That can give you a massive indication on how they are as a person when they don't perceive that other person to be on the same level as them. That wait staff could be a rocket scientist in their day job who's just doing something to get through their doctorate. You just don't know who the people are around you. And if someone who's quick to jump to conclusions, quick to make assumptions about people, then maybe that's not someone you want on your... Now, in order to attract A players, you need to create an environment where A players want to hang out. And an A player isn't someone that's so amazingly good at a particular thing, but then lack all the social skills. This is someone who's a good all-rounder in terms of they're personable, they work well with your team, they're good at the particular structure of work that you need to do, they're motivated to achieve things, they have the skills, and that's what I consider an A player to be. Not someone who's a savant, who is so amazingly good at one particular skill, but has no ability to deal with people, no ability to work with the team, no care or desire to follow your mission and rules. They're just using you to further their own outcomes. Those A players are the ones you want. And you need to create a team space where that is encouraged and where those people are enabled. You need to create something that is going to further them. They are also looking for personal development, not necessarily at the expense of you, but personal development that involves you being successful as well, because being on their resume to say that they were the person in this job that achieved something so great that they also made the company achieve something so great as well is really, really impactful for their resume. One of our goals is to be a resume-worthy credential, someone that someone gloats at. Oh, I've worked here, because that shows that they have an amazing level of respect. We know that people don't stay in jobs forever anymore. People used to work 20, 30 years in a job. Now people work 2 to 3 years, and that's even coming down with gig economy and all of these other little work tasks and side hustles and things like that. So we want to create an environment where these people are eager to deliver on the mission. And this is where that vision and mission come back into creating a place where people want to work. Because people don't want to work for someone who just want to exist. They want to work for someone who creates amazing change in an industry, or creates change in people's lives, or delivers better value. They don't want someone who's going to improve net profits by 2% in the next financial quarter. They want a company that is going to deliver a real outcome to real people, and not just a good result for shareholders. Now, once you find an A player, I encourage you to sit down with them and talk about what it is that they want out of the company, what makes them win, makes you win, and what are they looking to achieve long term. Because identifying what one A player wants will help you create an environment where other A players want to come along and hang out as well. So talking with the team will help you to create a better environment that attracts more of the good team. Another thing you need to do is not suffer fools. Now, this is, I guess, the other side, is sometimes, yes, you will recruit B players, you recruit C players, and getting them in the organization is something that is probably going to be inevitable. You can't always find the best people all of the time. You probably can't afford the best people all of the time, but you need to do your best to maintain and maybe bring B and C players up as much as you can to improve them and motivate them to do more. Sometimes, if you suffer a B or C player for too long, you frustrate the A player and they leave. So people don't want to see a standard for them and then a standard for somebody else. They want to create an environment where we're all working together for something awesome. Think about all of the football teams, the soccer teams, any kind of like team sport where, they're all there as elite athletes training to be better together to win the gold medal or to win the cup or to whatever it is that they're trying to achieve together. That's the kind of environment you need to sort of take. You can't have the one sloppy person that everybody hates and unfortunately the coach won't fire, or maybe the other players start to avoid them because everybody's passing the ball around but everybody refuses to pass the ball to them. Then everybody suffers because they may have been that one person in that one place at the right time and nobody passed to them because they had this hesitation. That's the kind of thing that you need to avoid. And by getting rid of B players or trying to train them as much as you can until at some point you need to make a decision is really, really important, because that's that environment that we're talking about. Where do A players want to come to? Where do they want to hang out? What do they want to, when they come to work every day? What do they want to see around them? Who do they want to talk to? Who do they want to engage with? You need to create that environment where they feel comfortable, they feel at home, they feel in the right place, and then they will continue to do more A player stuff in your environment and help you grow faster. Now, as your business scales, you're going to need to start to track and manage things in like surveys and numbers and reports, because you can't be everywhere all the time. You can't talk to everybody. You can't be in every meeting. You can't pick up on all the subtle cues that people give off when they're not happy in their job. And sometimes it does lead to an exit. And so you might need to start implementing things like exit interviews. Go and have a chat with someone. Why did you leave? What was the thing that you weren't happy about? What were you happy about? What was it that you would like to see more of? And what do you want to see less of? And sometimes it's out of your control. They got a better offer. Other times it's something that was niggling at them and they just couldn't let it go. And so now they needed to move on and find something else to do. But that feedback could be used. You may have missed the boat on that employee, but you can always use that feedback to create a better A-grade environment for all the A players that are in your business. So exit interviews can be a really valuable way to get information to help you create the environment that allows you to continue hiring A players and maintaining them in your business. I would also highly recommend sitting down with them one-on-one when they are still your employee. Talk to them on a regular basis. You don't have to do it every day. You might, in fact, have so many people that you really struggle to. But if you get around to people periodically, like you might do it monthly, quarterly, annually, or something like that, but you can sit down and go, what are you actually trying to achieve here? What problems do you see? How do I make you win? Here's what I'm looking to do. How do we figure out a way where we can both get an outcome here? And by having those conversations, you start to really show that you're invested in what it is that they're doing in your company. It also means that you can get that feedback in real time, in more depth, instead of it just being like a passing comment or a survey. You need to have those deeper conversations. You need to create spaces for people to communicate and talk to each other. So having team building activities, having days where people just get out and talk, that's where people cross the streams and, from one department to another, where they felt siloed, now they get to bond and talk and make a connection. And then they've got no problems picking up the phone and having a little bit of a chat and, oh, by the way, did you think of this or did you see that problem? That kind of interactivity really means that they get to share information with your intent in mind, and they're actually interested in having that dialogue or that engagement to solve problems, reduce bottlenecks. Because like I said, no one's going to be as interested in the business as you. So you need to kind of create moments that allow people to have space to have ideas, to have the freedom to express them and to share them, and to cross-pollinate those ideas between departments, because these people have one perspective and those people have another perspective. But by joining those perspectives together, we might come with a new insight that absolutely changes the game. Now, there's different ways to organize your business. And at a certain point, you need to start thinking about your management structure or your org chart or your processes for organizing and planning out your people in the business. So I mentioned earlier about mission command versus central command. Now, central command is a bad idea because it runs everything through one person. However, there's probably layers to this. You do need centrality of systems so that all of the data flows into one place. And you want to avoid people using shadow IT and different tools because that's what they think they should do. But you don't always want to control the decision making. And the people in your organization are often best put into pods or teams. So if you think about the military sort of concept, you've got a org chart or a battalion group or something like that. You've got a individual soldier, which rolls into a fire team, which might be 3 or 4 people, which rolls into a section, which rolls into a platoon, and then which rolls into a company. And now we're talking about, 300 to 500 people. And then you're talking about a battalion. And again, it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so every time you roll up into the next level, you've got this group of people that are organizing themselves in different ways. And so one person manages a few people, and then below that, one person manages a few people. And so this tree of organization and control, yes, it creates management structure and layers, which you can reduce through the use of systems and information sharing. But a structure allows those groups to be able to work, independently, but also in collaboration with other groups in your organization. Another way to organize your business is using a matrix structure. So a matrix is, you've got people going this way and that way. Matrix structure is commonly used in things like engineering firms where you've got a specialization. So you have this vertical department, which is maybe HVAC, and another one which was electromechanical engineering. Or you might have another one which is structural engineering. Now, each vertical has a very specific, academic set of rules around the knowledge that needs to be learned and understood and carried forward and trained and developed. And so that's why you need that vertical. That's why you need, someone who's very experienced leading people who are less experienced, leading people who are just starting. And so that creates that role or that skill evolution within that department. But then you might group them completely differently to actually do the work with the client, in which case they have kind of like 2 managers. They've got a client project team lead, but then they've got their department like education and career stream lead. Like that's the person who's training them on how to be a better whatever it is they are. Mechanical engineer as an example. And then the person who's leading them for the project might be bringing together resources from all of those. If you're going to build a house, you need structural, you need probably civil for the bridge to get to the front door, you need facade management, which is a new category these days, you need environmental, you need HVAC, you need all of these people, and they each have their own deep specialization, but you group them together in a particular project, and that's how you lead that group. So you need to come up with a plan on how you organize your teams. That's what's going to allow you to share information better, to make sure that people are guided, that they learn, that they understand what they have to do or not do, and that really enables them to, I guess, grow and be that A player no matter where they are in the company. Now, when delegating to a team, you have to learn to let go. They're not going to do it the way you would have done it. In fact, sometimes they might do it wrong. They might surprise you. They might come up with a new way that you never thought of that's 10 times better. And if you let go and you delegate until it hurts, you should then delegate some more. You have to bring people along for the ride. If you're not enabling them to do the thing, you will always be the person doing the thing. So you need to find a way to hand something over, then hand something else over, then hand something else over, and let them take care of it. They're going to be able to document in their own words how it should happen. In fact, you get them to train the next person, and so you're not constantly having to train everybody on everything every time. You can just make small tweaks in the future instead of having to, start from scratch with everybody every single time. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please do give us a like and a subscribe, and watch out for the next video.